Welcome, everybody, to the Middleton Elite Entrepreneur podcast, where we're deconstructing elite performance in real estate, business, and life through candid conversations with business leaders and thought leaders. I'm your host, Bill Middleton, the founder of Middleton Elite Coaching, and I'm glad to have you here. Let's get started. Now, I'm very excited to welcome my longtime friend and mentor, Shaun Rawls, to the podcast. Shaun is the founder and CEO of Rawls Consulting, a progressive, growth-minded organization that invests in people, businesses, and all aspects of residential and commercial real estate. He's a highly sought-after national speaker and author of Effortless, 18 F Words to Reframe and Repurpose Your Life. Shaun has spent more than 25 years working in real estate, ultimately building Atlanta's #1 residential real estate firm, the Rawls Group of Keller Williams, which has over 2,000 agents producing more than $4 billion, that's billion with a B, in annual sales. It consistently ranks among the best performing companies in the Keller Williams system. The Rawls Group won the award for Atlanta's best place to work among all companies in Georgia for an unprecedented 5 years in a row from 2009 to 2013 when Shaun was at the helm. We'll definitely talk about that today. He's been recognized as one of the top 40 real estate brokers in America by Real Trends and one of the top 200 most powerful people in real estate by Swanpoll. We cover a lot in today's episode, and some of my favorites are the changes in the real estate industry post August 17th and how to be more adaptable, making decisions based on limited information, why the power of the conversation is more important than the power of the presentation, how to surround yourself with lifters instead of leaners, and how to maintain your entrepreneurial spirit while also living a fulfilling and well-rounded life. Please enjoy my thought-provoking conversation with Shaun Rawls. I'm very excited to welcome my friend and mentor, Shaun Rawls, to the podcast. Shaun, welcome. We're glad to have you.
Thank you, Bill. It's exciting to be here. I've been looking forward to this for a while now.
As I was preparing for our conversation today, I was thinking back to the first time we interacted with one another, and you may or may not remember this. It was the summer of 2009, about teaching a roadshow of a course you used to teach called Seller Mastery, and I was in a room of maybe 1,000 people in Charleston, South Carolina, watching you teach that, and hard to believe it's been 15 years that we've been in each other's orbits.
Isn't that funny? I keep telling my kids that the older you get, the faster the world seems to spin. Yeah. And you look back and it's like, how did 15 years go by? Like 15, that's like a whole life for some people. That's a big deal.
It is a big deal. Well, I'm thankful.
That was fun. I used to love teaching in the Carolinas, man. It was, the Carolinas were probably my favorite place in the country to go.
Yeah. Absolutely. Felt like a home game for sure. Well, we've got a lot of great stuff to cover, and throughout today's episode, you'll weave in a lot of experience and wisdom, as you often do. Start, though, with the hot topic, and that is everything that's happening in our industry post August 17th and the NAR settlement and things that might live downstream of that. Just to be sort of intentionally general for now, would love just sort of your initial thoughts on what's happening, and let's see where it goes.
Wow. And I mean, it's just got everybody's panties in a wad. Everybody's just trying to figure out what it means for them. And it's, it's interesting because it's, I have a lot of philosophical differences with everything that went down. And, for the sake of transparency and clarity and whatever they're saying they tried to do, they sure created a shitstorm of just dust and a lack of clarity and what seems to be even worse, lack of transparency. I mean, it's just, and because of that, I don't think it's where it's going to be. I think it just is where it is. And I think we're just kind of we just are a little bit we hopped on a bull and we're just kind of hanging on at the moment and trying to get to a point where we can make some sense of it. But right now, I mean, everybody's trying to take the rules and work within them. It's, I think that, I have a lot of thoughts about this thing. I mean, a lot, and they're all different and they don't really all align, and I think that's probably where everybody is at the same time. But it's, I was teaching a mastermind last month, and the one thing I said was, when you graduate from college, and I've got a son who graduated last year, and I said, listen, you graduated from college, everybody knows you don't know anything right now, right?
Mhm.
So just because you have a degree, you don't know anything. You're brand new. So instead of telling people what you can do or what you're whatever, just ask advice for people of what how can you be the best at what you're doing in the next 5 years. I was like, just ask top producers, like, what do you need to do to be the best in the business? What do you need to do? But just realize everybody knows you're an idiot right now. And when I think about what's going on right now, I think we've got about nine. I mean, I think we've got the out of the chutes thing that we're wrestling. We're still in that period where we don't know anything either. It's our our hard drives basically got wiped out in a storm, right? And so
Sure.
we're having to rebuild all of our data because we don't really know what this change in compensation and how it can be done and how it can't be done. We don't really know how that impacts days on market. We don't know how that impacts sale price to list price ratios. We don't know how that impacts appraisal values of properties. I mean, there's just a lot of things we just don't know yet, and we have to accumulate some data. So, we're having agents that are going, hey, I had an agent call and said, I've got a client that says they want to list their house, but they don't want to pay a commission to somebody else.
Mm-hmm.
She said, what do I do? And then I said, well, first of all, I'd tell them that you'll take the listing. But I would say, look, I'm dying to know how what's going to work out for you.
Sure.
Right. I really don't know. Usually I can sit down and say, well, this is a good idea because, or this isn't a good idea because, and here's some data and here's some statistics and here's some whatever. But the truth is, we don't know anything. So if you want to be a guinea pig and you want to do that, I am all eyes and ears, and I can't wait to see. I really want to see experimentally how this works out. Now I'm playing with your money,
Right.
and I realize that. But if that's what you want to do, I have nothing to tell you you shouldn't do it. It may be the greatest thing ever. It may be horrible, and it may be somewhere in between. I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
And she loved it, and she ended up getting the listing, and I think they changed their tune on it a little bit. But I think people need to realize that. I think you and I talked about this initially, and it's if I was hiring a financial planner, the first thing they want to know is, well, before we can start deciding where to put your money, we need to know what your tolerance for risk is.
Exactly.
Right. I mean, depending on how old you are, what you're doing for work, where your income comes in, like, is this money you want to like be speculative and grow and be very volatile, or do you want it to be very solid? Is it going to freak you out if it goes down in value? Is it going to make you excited if it goes way up in value? What's your tolerance for risk? And I almost think that we have to kind of like steal that script from the financial industry and realize right now we're kind of a financial advisor of sorts, and we need to kind of say, what's your tolerance for risk? Because all I can tell you is anything that deviates from what we've all done has an element of risk in it, only because it's unknown at this point. Now, once we get to certain points beyond August 17th, 2024, I think we'll be able to start guiding more and having more authority in that conversation. But right now, I think we lack that authority. And I think there's not a lot of times in our business where it's okay not to know anything. And I think right now it's really okay not to know anything.
Sure.
The question becomes, how fast can you start knowing something?
Mm-hmm.
Because it's, you and I know that, from a leadership standpoint, that the best leaders tend to make the best decisions in the absence of information. And that is, I think we're going to see the best agents start making good decisions and charting a path in the absence of information or with very little information, whereas most of the people in our industry are waiting for all the information loads to come in. I've always said the funny thing about real estate is, and I've tried to tell my kids this, that if you have vision, you can make a fortune in the real estate business.
Mm-hmm.
But you can take you can take buyers to a beautiful lot and say, the house you want to live in would look amazing on this lot. We just need to build it.
Mhm.
Like most of America, that gives they get a stomach ache and they can't handle that, right? So then you've got people that they have to see the house getting framed on the lot, and then they go, okay, I can do that, right? And then there are a lot of people still that go, I can't see it. And then they have to wait till the house is finished. And then they can go, oh my God, this is a great house on a great lot. And then there's still more people that they don't have enough vision for that. They've got to see it furnished to make sure that their bedroom's going to look okay if with a king size bed in the bedroom. Otherwise, they can't see it.
Mhm.
And so I think in our industry, because we make up all those people from a vision standpoint, those that can see the house on the lot before it exists,
Mhm.
they're going to be the people that get out of the gate quickest. They're going to come up with the answers the fastest. That they're going to start creating their unfair share of market share in their communities because they just were looking for answers and solutions. And anytime we have change in our industry of any kind, we all have to deal with it for a second. And you can have a pity party, and you can kind of go, well, this is the stupidest thing ever. But you have to get in solution mode quickly,
Yeah.
because the fact of the matter is the Department of Justice is after the real estate industry, and they've created some rules that we have to live by. And I don't think anybody's opinion of what they agreed to with NAR has any effect on them whatsoever.
Mhm.
So whatever they said, rock, paper, scissors is kind of what the answer is. And you just have to figure out how to win the game based on how the rules have changed. And I think we've got to get solution based, because this is a major distraction I'm finding. You're
Mhm.
probably finding it with your clients too, where you kind of look at it like, so how's your lead generation? It's like, it seems like it's this conversation around the commissions and the commissions and the compensations and the commissions. And it's like, look, that's how's your lead generation. Do not let this distraction get you off of the game of lead generation and lead conversion in your business, because that's not going to change. But it's a viable excuse for a lot of people to take their eye off the ball. And when they look back on this year and they didn't hit their numbers and they just had a weak second half of the year, they're going to realize they spent too much time whining about the changes instead of figuring out how to solve for those variables in their business
Mhm.
and up
Well,
their game.
let's hang here for just a second if we can, and I'm going to go slightly in reverse order of how I would have naturally asked the question, but let's keep building on what should agents be doing right now, and then let's just kind of kick the can further down the road, and that
Yeah.
might be where you spend some time on thinking, and one of your very very big strengths is this creative visionary kind of thing. So if you were thinking about the business 2 or 3 or 5 years into the future, what are some things that you're thinking about or you might encourage people to be considering?
2 and 3 years seems like like a lifetime away at this point. I think that I think people just have to figure out how to. There are two things I think people need to do. I think they need to go to events. Like right now is a great time to be, whether it's virtual or a seminar that's a nationally based seminar, even if it's your company's thing and you've got people from all over the country. I think the networking in different pockets of the US is critical right now, because I think you're going to have conversations or panels where people are talking and you're going to figure out, oh my God, that guy in Idaho, brilliant. Like, why didn't I think of like that just telling my clients that, or just doing that? Like, I'm going to steal that and bring it home to Atlanta like today.
Mm-hmm.
And I think right now, because of the solutions that people are trying to figure out, I think the attending good quality events is a way to go copy off somebody else's paper quickly and start formulating your way in your local community to get out there and do what you need to do. So I think events are probably I would be investing in events if I was like, where can I go in the next 30 days that is going to have some really great people there, and having conversations that can send me home with something in my playbook.
Mhm. Mhm.
And then I think it's sharpening the saw of your game. I mean, I think the again, I think that, we're so prone to providing scripts and knowing what to say that, again, I think we're in this period of time where we don't really know. And I think the power of the conversation is more important than the power of the presentation. And I think we have to get really good, just kind of meeting our clients where they are mentally, and acknowledging that really anything anybody thinks right now about our business, whether you agree with it or not, has validity to it somewhere. They heard it, they read it, they saw it on a TV show, on a newscast, heard it on the radio, came across their phone 50,000 times over the last 3 months and told them they didn't have to pay a real estate. I mean, we just have to go, what's your experience? Where are you in the funnel of getting all this information, and what is it, how is that percolated in your world? Because when they say that this is what I want to do, or what do you think about, or I heard that, or all the different ways that comes across the plate, I think we have to say, we're trying to figure that out.
Mhm.
I think we have to really focus on what's important to you. I think we really have to figure out what your time frame is. And I think all the things that I would have always done as a real estate agent are still critically important. The
Mhm.
compensation part is interesting because we just don't know how that's going to shake out, right? So
Mhm.
we can the easy answer is do it the way we've always done it. And that
Mhm.
that just that in my opinion, that eliminates risk of rocking boats or whatever. And then I'll
Mhm.
go out and do my job, and whatever that is. But if you don't want to pay somebody a commission or whatever that looks like, I can't tell you not to do it. I can only tell you that based on what I'm hearing, and based on what people are talking about, and based on how people are deciding to show property, and how buyers are reacting to what they can afford and that they can't. I think you're just introducing risk, and you're probably eliminating some viable candidates for your property, which may be okay,
Mhm.
but it may not. And we just don't know. But I think we have to get really good at our presentation and how we converse with our clients, and making sure that we're not really, it's kind of like, I think there's going to be the interesting thing about having all these options, because there's no rules, and they don't want any rules around the compensation.
Mhm.
I think one of the advantages I think smart agents are going to have is they're going to realize you're probably going to lose, right? I
Mhm.
mean, it's like, I look at it, it's almost like a box of crayons where you say, I've only got one color crayon in my box, right? This is the way I do it. But a good agent's going to go, all right, so tell me about your situation. Tell me about what you need to do. Tell me about where you want to go. Tell me about your financial situation. Tell me about your level of risk tolerance. And let me factor all this. And based on the answers you've given me, I think we need to use the orange crayon here. And I think we need to structure this in your listing, and this should be our compensation model, and we should plan for this. And then the next person we go talk to in the afternoon, we listen to, and we go, you know what? I actually think we need to color with blue on this one. I think we need to grab the blue crayon. And I think the more open we are to realizing that now we actually have the ability to not be a one way or one trick pony. I think really look at a client and really look at their needs and bring our expertise to the table and say, based on what I know and based on what you're telling me, here's where all that information collides, and here's the strategy I think that I would deploy based on everything that we've talked about. And then, and not be like, well, I always do it this way, or this is the way my team does it, or my company doesn't allow us to do this. I think we're going to see better agents expand their strategies for their clients and be able to capitalize on that with creating value around it and realizing that we can customize an approach for you, or we can take all the information the market has to give us and all the information you have to give us, and we can come up with the best plan, because no longer is it one way. They've now created what was a constant and now created a complete variable around it. So that variable, it's got some good and it's got some bad, but it's a variable, and we're going to look for the good, and we're going to figure out how to use that variable to your advantage, given the situation at hand, given the context of supply and demand. I mean, look, if you've got the house that everybody wants and is looking for in the city next to the lake on the whatever, and there aren't any other listings right now and they can't find it, you know what? I would probably go into a different color crayon with that and go, you know what? I think we can go tell them to pound sand. I don't think we need to do that for you. I think we can price it at a premium, and I think we can pay a discount for professional services. And I think you've got the kind of product that affords you the ability to do that.
Mm-hmm.
But for the guy that says, I want to tell somebody to pound sand, and there's 50 other houses within 5 miles that are similar to his, that's not that's the wrong crayon. We can't color with that one.
Right. Right. To maybe build on this for a little bit, and this might get more into sort of what you foresee in the future, and the comment you made earlier about visionaries kind of getting out ahead of all of this. What I've observed, and maybe you've seen similar, is there's kind of two camps. There is the camp who's saying, okay, I recognize that this represents a big potential change in our industry. I'm not exactly sure where it's going to go, but I need to start doing that work. And then there's a whole other group who sort of says, okay, maybe not. Right now, it still feels mostly like business as usual, even though maybe the paperwork's a little different or the sequence is a little different. So I'll just kind of wait and see. And maybe if you could elaborate on those two approaches and the pros and cons of those.
Well, first you got to acknowledge that every state is different, right? They've changed the rules the way they wanted it, and now every other state has to adjust to differing levels. So, in Atlanta, I feel like our paperwork's been pretty good. We've got amazing attorneys here that have created documents that I think even though people don't like it, I think that the actual changes that have had to take place in Atlanta are a lot less than some places like Florida, for example. I don't know. It's kind of interesting to see. It's kind of interesting to see where that's going to go. Mm-hmm. It's kind of interesting to see where that goes. What was hit me with the two questions one more time, though, because I just lost my train of thought.
Yeah, that's okay. No problem. I was sort of describing generally speaking, the two different types of agents that I've observed right now. One is the person who says, okay, I acknowledge that this is a big structural change in our industry, and I need to go create a box full of different colors of crayons, and then kind of what that person might go do, or what you might encourage them to further look at.
Well, I don't know what they should do necessarily, but I just think mindset's really important right now. I mean, I think you just have to decide whether you're going to be okay or not. And whatever that means to you is your actions are going to follow that. So if you look back on, I got my license in 1988. I was in college at Georgia Tech. I was right before my sophomore year, and I got licensed. I didn't do anything with it for a couple of years, and I graduated in 91, and then I started to work, and then right at 93 is when Beretta hit, mm-hmm. and I went to work for a exclusive buyer brokerage who was the mother owned the firm of a friend of mine, and I'd known her for years since I was a kid, and she was kind of a badass, and she just was a little bit of a independent, rebel, and she loved protecting people. That was her thing. And she built a brokerage around the fact that buyers weren't represented and the contracts didn't represent them, and everything was skewed to the sellers. And man, when I got out of college and I got into real estate, and I was protecting buyers, and I didn't realize, I mean, that was just training. I mean, I just got beat up every day. I mean, anybody that was in the real estate business were like, you represent the buyer and you want us to pay your commission? What is wrong with you? That we don't do it that way here. I mean, it was just, I was like, what do you mean you don't do it that way? It was just this, it was just, I just got pow, pow, pow.
Mm-hmm.
But 2 years later, it was like, that was everybody had to have the representation. It was like, wow, this is like crazy. And then people, I watched the whole industry have to adjust to that change. And then I can remember in the mid to late 90s when the internet was creeping up, right? The World Wide Web, and thinking nobody's going to buy a shirt on a computer. I mean, I can remember having that conversation in an office where people were discussing whether they would really buy a shirt on a computer. You got to go try that thing on. How would you buy it? It was just one of those, but it just, when it comes, and guess what? Now people buy everything on the computer, right? But on the front end of change, we become that person that can't see the house on the lot.
Mm-hmm.
We could come up with a gazillion different changes we've seen in our business, but my mantra is, when you see change coming, embrace it like it was your idea. If you will just embrace it like it's your, because very rarely have we seen change pop up that didn't become a reality. I mean, very rarely does somebody come up with, you get introduced with an idea in this business where it's like, this is going to happen, or we're thinking about doing this. And, sure, people go, well, that's kind of stupid, or I don't think we do it that way, or, I can't see that house on the lot. And then we discount it. And the next thing you know is there's like a company that popped up that does that. And then there's like another company, and then there's like a thing. And then all of a sudden change is just going to happen. Even when we find ourselves pushing back on stuff, and this whole NAR thing is, I mean, it's going to be a great lesson in that, because fast forward, a year from now, it's going to be, we're not even going to be talking about it. Mm-hmm. Right. I mean, it's just going to be what it is. Mm-hmm. So we're on the bull. You better just friggin' ride it, because there's nothing you're going to do to change it. Mm-hmm. But I think it's, if you look for it, like, what is great about this change that I can communicate to my clients? Because if I can embrace this like it's my idea, like I'm selling it because it was my idea, and I've got to convince people that this was my idea to do, I'm going to have a much better time creating solutions for my business. Mm-hmm. But it's if you look back on all the changes you've pushed back against, or you've watched people push back against, I mean, look, people look at all the technology platforms. I mean, the Snapchats, the stupid things with the pictures and the kids, was like, yeah, this is the stupidest thing ever. Well, guess what? Snapchat blew up. TikTok blew up. Everything. I mean, and all us guys who are now considered old, anything new comes up and we just like, but it's like, it's on the stock exchange, and it's trading for billions of dollars because it's got the heart and minds of a younger generation. And we have to be really careful not to become dinosaurs in the world. And the only way to do that is just to embrace the change. My grandmother had a saying. She used to say, if you want to stay young, hang around, spend your time with young people. Mm-hmm. And she said, and if you want to die young, try to keep up with them. But she was right. I mean, it's like, you have to you've got to be looking at everything new through a lens that is a fresh lens. And the longer we've been doing something, or the more susceptible we are to rigidity and getting comfortable in our ways. Even if you're not older, or you haven't been in the business for a long time, if you've done really well and made a lot of money, that's the equivalent of old. Mm-hmm. But just because you get comfortable, this is how we do it, and we're killing it, and I don't want to change it because I don't want to rock the boat, and I don't want to sit that, and that's a threat to my income source. But it's the same dynamic as age or time. When you're making a lot of money, it's like a microwave to those same things, would just get you locked into what you like, mm-hmm. and what you're comfortable with. Mm-hmm. But I think agents need to find a way to embrace this change and the next change and the next change like it was their own and look for all the reasons why it's a good thing and just go with that.
Mm-hmm.
And shelve your mindset or the issues you've got with it for the sake of your livelihood and your industry, and figuring out these are the new rules. So now I've got to figure out how to win find a new strategy that plays within the new rules of the thing.
Mm-hmm. I love it.
Right. I mean, it's like, I think it was Gary Keller that used to say, Monopoly comes with rules of how to play the game, but it doesn't give you the strategies of how to do it.
Mm-hmm.
And it's almost like our Monopoly game just got some new rules.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's up to us to figure out some new strategies to make that work.
Yeah, I love this thought pattern. If we tease this thread just a little bit, and maybe this is a smidge redundant, if you're leading a sales team right now, someone's listening to this podcast or watching this video, and they're saying, that sounds great, Shaun. I love all that. And I got 5, 10, 20 people underneath me that I got to figure out a way to lead through this. Or maybe it's a brokerage firm and you're the sales manager or the owner of the brokerage firm. What's your advice there?
I would probably crowdsource as much as I could, and I would make people start citing specifically what they're having issues with.
Mm-hmm.
Because my guess is most of the issues people are having are mindset issues. And then the skills issues that you're going to have mindset issues and you're going to have skills issues. And it's going to be interesting to see which one is heavier, right? Mm-hmm. But the skills issues those are real. And that is a matter of slowing down enough to reformulate some new things in your business. So if you've got a team and you've been great at motivating, and you've been like, go get them, and you've got this, and you're awesome, and you go, pat them on the butt, put them back out there, put them back out there, put them back out there. That's not good enough right now. So let's talk about the scripts. Let's talk about the conversations. Let's talk about the crayons in the box. Let's talk about the strategies. Let's talk about why you would want this in this situation and why you wouldn't want this in this situation, and what would be better here versus what would be better there. And when somebody has an objection, here's how you need to help them understand what they're playing with that, and how just help them self-discover what's best for them and realize they're working with somebody who's a consultant, not a salesperson, who's going to hold their hand and be a partner in the transaction with them and help, and that they know they can trust to do the right thing by them, and they believe that they're going to get them to the finish line in a way that they won't lose sleep. And I think we have to make sure that our people have skills, but I think skills and mindset is really pretty much it. And I think the mistake we're going to make is, because I'm seeing this now, where you've got agents who are the best in the business. I mean, they're as skilled as you can get, but even those people, the cool thing is this change. You mentioned when we met in 2009, we were in the thick of the recession, right? I mean, whatever we want to call that thing, but it was not pretty.
Mm-hmm.
We kept thinking it was going to be over soon, and it wasn't. But I remember being interviewed by somebody. I want to say it was at the Business Chronicle or something. I can't remember what it was, but I was being interviewed by somebody and about it after the fact. And I said, what was interesting about that for me is it's almost like every business in America got punched in the face by a boxer, by a professional boxer, with everything they got. And depending on the business that took the punch, if it was an established business that had strong legs under it, that had been around for years and had reserves and ran a good business and was profitable and didn't waste their money and didn't run on thin ice, those businesses survived. In some cases, thrived. Mm-hmm. But if you were an athletic guy and you took that punch, you lived to tell about it. If you were a pregnant woman, you probably got knocked out or worse. If you were a kid, you took the same punch, right? And you probably didn't live to tell about that. And you were one of those businesses that just had to fold up shop and go home and wait for the next one. But everybody lived through the same economic punch. And it was the strength of the business that took the punch that determined whether it lived or died, or whether it staggered, or whether it punched back, right? And I think that the cool thing about what's happening in our industry right now is everybody is getting hit with the same punch.
Mm-hmm.
No matter whether you're in Alabama, or you're in San Diego, or you're in Atlanta, or Wilmington, it just doesn't matter. Mm-hmm. So, because with the buyer side of it, I think that's the weirdest part of the whole thing, is to say, used to be like, hey, why don't I show you a couple of houses and see how I work? We can talk through some stuff and see if it's something that if we feel like we want to continue working together, then we can make that official. But let's just go on a date or two, and then we'll decide if we want to go steady. And now what they're saying is, hey, we have to get married before we go on a date. And that's just the rule, right? I mean, that's just the new rule of life. And it feels so awkward, and it just feels wrong. It feels it's just uncomfortable for everybody. And the only solace that people can really take in it is realize that, look, everybody's got to be telling everybody they got to get married before they go on a date. I mean, it's not just me. Like, it's not like I'm having to wrestle with this because my broker is requiring it, right? I mean, we're talking about the Department of Justice and NAR. I mean, I don't have anywhere to run, and everybody is supposed to have this conversation. Now, I'm sure we're going to find out again through events or whatever, and somebody somewhere comes up with a really clever way of dealing with that marriage proposal. But we're all dealing with the same thing. Again, I think the people who are most solution-based and most embracing of the change are going to be okay, and probably going to increase their market share and take more, because there's so many people just still floundering around and bitching about the realities of this business that nobody's going to be able to change. And the people that kind of figure out, well, I'm just going to figure out how to win with it, no matter what, are going to be fine.
Yeah. I wonder too, and there probably are some lessons that you could pull forward from your time thriving through the Great Recession. Maybe just a little muscle flex here about what you guys at KW First Atlanta were able to accomplish through the last recession, and you led the team through that, and that might sort of naturally lead into people development and leadership development.
Yeah, probably. I've always called that period of time, it was kind of faith-based leadership in terms of, and I don't mean from a religious sense, I mean I think this is the right direction to take, and I'm just going to have some faith that I'm going to follow my gut, that this is the right decision to make for our team. And it turned out that a lot of those decisions were good for us, or seemed right in the rearview mirror. But it's really hard. I said earlier, I think I said that, the best leaders make great decisions in the absence of information. And I think we're kind of, for a lot of leaders right now, I think there are a lot of leaders that don't have the information they really want to have. And agents don't have the information sitting at the kitchen table they really want to have. And I think you have to understand that you still have to make decisions without the information you want. And it's time to think about, what's important to you, what's important to your business, what do you want your business to be known for? If you look back on your business a year from now, what do you think would be the things that would have made you a better company or a better agent in the next 12 months? Mm-hmm. If you were to look back on it from a year, what do you think the decisions you could have made a year ago would have translated into you having the business you want and being comfortable? When we go back on that, I mean, it was, we were hearing of, all these companies that were cutting their staff back and releasing people in the offices that the agents loved and had loved for years. And we just said, you know what, we're not gonna let anybody go. We're gonna figure out a way to do this, and we're just not gonna let anybody go. And we kind of started with this whole people over profits mantra that we wanted our people to know that they were the most important And if we really did that well, that we felt like the profits would show up and that they would take care of themselves. If we took care of our people, that people would take care of us. And we just kind of did that. We just poured into, we embraced education like crazy, right? And we just wanted our people to be the most knowledgeable bunch of people that somebody could talk to in the real estate industry. And then we quickly figured out that people were running, there were a lot of opinions, right? And people, your house wasn't worth as much, and all the, the inventory was skyrocketing, and there were all these issues, and there were all these opinions, and we realized that there wasn't a lot of really good data. So Jerry and I came up with this idea of, we had a guy in our office who had a corporate background, and I can't remember how that actually happened in the genesis of it, but the long and short of it is we came up with statistics and mining the MLS for statistics that we put in graph form, and they were very detailed, not as detailed as they are today, but they were, we didn't have them before. So we were like,
Right.
This is amazing. So we started doing these presentations quarterly, and we did them in movie theaters, and we put them on the big screen, and we literally would have agents. We would fill a movie theater. We would have agents sitting on the floor of the aisle of a movie theater. Go figure. Scariest place on earth. And they would sit there and they would take notes, and we would talk through every script of how you would present this to a seller or a buyer, or what was relevant about it and what they could see. And none of these were about making Keller Williams number one. None of these were about company. It was just, this is the data. And so this is all we can tell you. And whether you like it or not, this is the data. This is they're true. I think Mark Twain had a quote that said there are lies, damn lies, and statistics. And so we just kind of embraced statistics, and truthfully, our people really clung to that. And we had new agents that could sit down with buyers and sellers and talk like they had just graduated with a degree in real estate statistics. And it was kind of a magic pill for us on some level. What's interesting about that time is and I think we're going to see that again here, is when you start leading a team or your business or brokerage or a franchise in times of uncertainty, it is kind of faith-based. Like you kind of put your flag in the ground or whatever, but you're going to do some things that you're not quite sure. It's just going to feel like you're just doing a lot and you're not going anywhere. But I've said, like, it was kind of like, it was like if you go to the beach and you get in the water and you put your towel down, put your little umbrella up, and you put your cooler down, and then you say you're going to go in the beach, and or you're going to go in the water, and you go in the water, and you go hang out and you play and you goof around and you splash around for a little bit, and then you're like, okay, I'm tired, I want to go back, and you start to head back to the towel and the umbrella, and you don't see it. Mm-hmm. And you're like, who took my freaking umbrella? And then all of a sudden, and then you look and you realize, like, you're like 100 yards down beach from where you entered, and you thought you were standing still. And I think there's a lot of that goes in. I think that's very relevant for leaders to understand that if you're making decisions and you're making movement and you're doing the things that you think are important to you, there are going to be a lot of times where you feel like you're just standing still and nothing's happening. Mm-hmm. But when things start kind of shaping up or easing up, you're going to realize you actually move the needle a lot more than you thought. Mm-hmm. And 2010 was the absolute bottom of the recession by all statistical accounts. And in 2010, we had gone from, I think we were the fourth largest brokerage, not largest, but like production brokerage in Atlanta going into the recession. And in 2010, square in the middle of it, we had become number one. Mm-hmm. And I'll never forget the day, because there was a company in Atlanta called Harry Norman Realtors who, mm-hmm. Harry Norman was an icon real estate company that started in the 50s and was always the number one real estate company. And I remember getting the Business Chronicle and seeing that we were number one, and Harry Norman was number two. And it was like one of those moments in my life I'll never forget. Just looking at that page, going, "Oh my God,
Yeah.
we we're oh my God." I mean, it was really incomprehensible to me. But it was like that moment where it was like, wow, did I move farther down the beach than I ever thought possible?
Mm-hmm.
And my umbrella is a long way away from where I just thought it was.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I do think there's, I think if you know what you want, and I think if you know your people, and I think if you know your value and you're constantly finding ways to communicate your value to your people and to your clients, I think you're going to make big moves
Mm-hmm.
that might not feel like big moves in the immediate view, but I think when you look back, you're going to realize they were pretty big moves.
Mm-hmm. Let's talk a little bit about business culture along the way too. You made a comment about people over profits, and I know that you and your team won multiple Best Places to Work in Atlanta awards during that
Yeah, we
era
did.
and following. And there are a lot of great companies headquartered in Atlanta, as you and I both know. You'd speak on some of the best practices or lessons learned or ways you might suggest people focus on business culture within their own organizations.
Yeah, I think it's look, if if you have a business and you don't say you're an awesome place to work, then what are you in business for? Right? I mean, like you have to be able to say you should really want to work here because this is awesome, right? What we do is awesome. We like our industry, we like our whatever, we like our future, we like our people. We have softball games on the weekend. We whatever it is that you do, hopefully you feel like you've got a great place to come and work for people to come and work. And the problem that if you've been in business long enough, you realize that because that's the truth, everybody's got the marketing pitch on why it's a great place. The problem is the majority of businesses that have that marketing pitch don't have any substance to back it up. And if you're running an organization and you can say, okay, well, this is what we know is great about our company. This is what I know that this is where we have value, and this is we're awesome, and we're a place where great minds think, and we include everybody, and we are productive, and we are passionate, and we are all the buzzwords that you see on a normal basis. Great. Now tell me how many actual examples of that can you rattle off?
Mm-hmm.
Like, okay, passionate. Now let's define that. And how does that show up in our business? Like, give me real tangible things that if that's the title of the book on the cover and I can open the book, there's actual pages of things that exist that actually show that we have passion here. And what about productivity? And what about professionalism? And what about, whatever? I mean, it was, I used to be crazy about the way people dress. I've always been a nice dresser for the most part, like a suit and tie guy or a jacket and shirt guy or whatever. I mean, like, and the people that would show up and in their workout clothes, or we used to have to make if you're dressed for work like you're going to be going to the club on Friday night, you're probably not wearing the right, that's not professional, right? And we've got people in here with, $1 million buyers and sellers in the conference room. They don't need to see you running through in your Lululemon, half top, just to pick up your check or what. Like, if you're going to come in here, respect everybody and realize that we all have clients and we all want to make sure that we give a good impression from all aspects of our company. And that doesn't matter as much today as it used to, probably, but it still bugs me. I mean, it's like, if it's professional, I want you to look professional. If I want to be known as a professional company, for God's sakes, just, if you can't do anything right, just dress right when you leave the house, right? I mean, just look good, for God's sakes. But I do think it's a good exercise. I can remember we had a leadership mastermind with Mark Willis. Like, my God, it had to be like early to. It was pretty funny. He said, I want you guys to write down what you think is so awesome about your office.
Mm-hmm.
And oh man, we're a bunch of team leaders in the room, and we're just like, we're awesome because, and we're awesome because, and we do this, and it was just, you couldn't write fast enough.
Yeah.
And then when you were done, he said, okay, so now tell me how your agents would describe your office.
Mm-hmm.
And I will never forget thinking, gee, well, I would hopefully they would describe it similar to the way I described it. And then I started thinking about it and thinking, you know what? I bet they wouldn't. I bet I'm probably the most freaking enthusiastic guy about my business in the business.
Mm-hmm.
And if that's the case, that's a little bit of a wake-up call.
Sure.
Like if you've got a really good culture and you've got and it's not just a marketing pitch, you're not the most excited person about the business you run,
mm-hmm.
right? You should have some competition for that title.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're getting it, it's almost like the seller, like saying, we'll still say today, like if you're the highest bidder on your own home, you get to keep it.
Right.
That's the reality of putting a house on the market, right? If you think your house is worth more than anybody else, it's your house,
right?
And it will remain your house.
Uh-huh.
And I think in business it's the same way. Like it's this, surveys are important and having conversations and what people. And I think as a leader, like because we're enthusiastic about our business and somebody has a complaint about it, it's real easy to make you. I can say, I hear you, Bill, and that's, you know what, let me look into that and let me see what I can do, and that's a good point, and I can't argue with that. And then like 3 weeks go by, and I forgot all about it.
Uh-huh.
All that says to Bill is he's full of shit. He's talking the talk and he's not walking the walk, and he's not really that interested. And if he cared about it, he would have followed up on it. So I think from a leadership perspective, like if you're going to hear your people, they need to see that you heard them by addressing things. Like if you really said that's valid, I'm going to look into that. You've got to look into it, because everybody wants to find fault in a great leader. Everybody. And they will grab any straw they can grab on that, and don't give them an easy one. Mm-hmm. I just think it's just do what you say you're going to do. Mm-hmm. It's kind of a simple one, but it's, there are a lot of, good leaders make a lot of promises, and great leaders keep them.
Speaking of great leaders, this might be a good little segue for this. I'd be interested in some of your more impactful mentors, coaches, colleagues along the way. You can grab as few or as many as you'd like to. Could be real estate related, could be just life related.
Yeah, there's a lot. I think we're all kind of like a patchwork quilt, of human beings at the end of the day, and everybody's got a little tattoo of somebody on them somewhere. And my dad died years ago, and somebody just messaged me the other day from New York and said, you used to tell the greatest stories about things your dads would say. And, and I don't know what those were, but that were true. And he wasn't really a big influence on me in my life, but now that he's gone, I realize probably what an influence he really was, and how much power some of the things he said, or how much truth they actually held. My grandmother's no longer here, was a good one. I've already brought her up today with the young thing. I think about her all the time. I had a coach. Do you know Cherie Lowry?
Yeah, I know Cherie.
So I got her into Maps. She lives in Atlanta, and when we were in existence before Maps was, and somebody introduced me to Cherie, and so she came down to the office, and we had a meeting, and I'll never forget. It was the first meeting we ever had, and she said, "Tell me what you think of when you think of the word accountability." Mm-hmm. And I said, "Oh, that's easy. I have that immediately makes me think of me being a horse and you sneaking up to me with a saddle and throwing it on me, jumping on top and riding like hell and beating the shit out of me." And she laughed like you did. And she said, "I think it's fair to say that you have a pretty warped view of accountability."
It's a good visual though.
But truthfully, I was being honest. I was like, I don't think I've ever had or felt like I'd never had a coach before professionally, right? So I'd had coaches. I was a competitive tennis player, and I had coaches for tennis and that sort of thing. But I always felt like somebody had an agenda that they wanted me to be a part of, and it was interesting. I never really embraced accountability, and because I never had a relationship before that
Mm-hmm.
where I felt like I had somebody in my corner that was supporting me.
Mm-hmm.
And Cherie was hugely impactful. I should probably call her and tell her that that came up. It would mean a lot. But it's a that was a big day for her to look at me and just say, "I think you have a pretty warped view of accountability." I mean, but it wasn't really with judgment, and it wasn't like, what a dumbass. It was just, and then that conversation go, well, tell me about your experiences and tell me about whatever. And as we talk through it, and what if it looked like this, and what if it looked like that, and what if it looked like, and all of a sudden it just took somebody to kind of shift the lens a little bit and to truly show up as being. I don't think it's a lot different when I think about that particular meeting. I don't think it's a lot different than a seller trying to decide who to list their house with. Like, somebody says something that's impactful, and it's that, I don't know if you've ever heard me say, it's like, it's things that make you go
Mm-hmm.
and it's the factor. That if you can say something and somebody goes, I hadn't thought about that before, or that's interesting, or hmm anytime somebody goes, it's score one for the other guy, right? Because you made them think, or you disrupted their thought process, or you made them question their own belief system about something. So that was a big moment for me professionally. And Shireen and I ended up working together for years in a very great relationship. But it's, in fact, one of the things that came out of that was, she figured out that she set a rule in our sessions, and the rule was we could never use the word goals. She's like, I think you have an aversion to the word goals, which, and I do, by the way. I just don't like them. And she said, but we're gonna substitute the word goals with intentions.
Mm-hmm.
She's like, you're good with intentions, but you don't like the word goals. So we're going to substitute goals for intentions. And so her thing was like, what are your intentions for that? Or
Mm-hmm.
what do you intend to do with that? And it brought this word that I felt like was so cliche and overused and just kind of generic. And the
Mm-hmm.
word intentions just makes it so personal to me.
Mm-hmm.
And it was a good rule. And so we talked a lot about intentions, and we never talked about goals in my world. So it was kind of fun. But Cherie was a big influence. Gary Keller was huge. I mean, Gary Keller was huge for me. I mean, it was, yeah, I remember meeting Gary for the first time in Texas, and it was like a mega agent camp, and there were like 200 people in the room. I mean, it was 1999 in
Mm-hmm.
July or June of 99. And, and I just was like, who is this? I mean, he was just given information that I'd never seen anybody give. And like, he was just a completely open book, and he was smart, and he was just kind of dorky, and he was just, but he was just so real. I mean, he was just so real. He had a huge, I just liked being around. One thing I figured out in my life is I like being around smart people. Like, I'm very attracted to intelligence,
Mm-hmm.
right? Other things, but I think fundamentally, I mean, I think when somebody shows up as smart and they can communicate that level of intelligence, I think it's pretty powerful. Gary was that for me. Mark Willis was that for me. I used to always listen to Jim Rohn. I loved. I mean, even met him a couple of times, but I mean, Jim Rohn was just. I mean, his wit and his ability to philosophize on life and business was unlike anybody else. Still, if nobody's ever listened to Jim Rohn, they should go get the best of and listen to that, because it is just pure gold. You get those, and then you get authors and books, and but that's Yeah, I mean, those are the people that really stand out in terms of like professional, mentors that just kind of are people that had impacts along the way.
Hmm.
And then there's just a gazillion of just the people that you just work with that just give you so much belief and courage. And, so many people in my world call me Big Daddy. That was
Hmm.
my, I mean, it was just funny. It was just Big Daddy. And it was just so funny, but and as funny as it was, um, like these people count on me, I mean, these people, like, I mean, they do see me as the leader of this thing. And just being around people that believe in you and that want to hear what you have to say and trust that you're going to make the right decisions and like the way you lead a company. And I mean, I could give you a list of 200 people that are probably off the top of my tongue that just made me feel like this is a responsibility that I'm grateful for, and it is something that I have an immense amount of appreciation for being in this spot, and I don't want to screw it up. And I don't ever want them to think less of me than they do.
Hmm.
And that was so just the people that, if you're building a company or business, like the people you bring on should make you feel that way because
If I
you're
go
picking them.
if I go back for a second to your comment on goals versus intentions, and you spoke on this briefly, but build a little more for me on the aversion to the word goals.
You know what? You know, like that you can meet somebody like 5 times, and on the fifth time you're going, what was your name again? Like we've all had that guy, right? That just for whatever reason didn't penetrate.
Hmm.
Like just never made the connection, and I just not enough to like connect, and I not to remember the name. Like I'm the master of like, hey, I'm Shaun, you're Sue, walk away. What was her name? Like I'm the master of that. But that's not indicative of that. But when I know that I've met you like 3 or 4 or 5 times and I cannot think of, it's like, I can't quite come, like it just didn't register with me. Like nothing ever, something about it from a chemistry perspective just didn't register. And goals for me is just like one of those things. I have to talk about it and I have to teach about it in times, and I think I do a really good job with it. But at the end of the day, if I'm on truth serum,
Hmm.
I don't really like goals. I mean, I like having intentions and I like knowing where we're going.
Hmm.
That all is important. But for me, the word goals, and it probably has something to do with that warped view of accountability that just needs a therapist to kind of work out. But it's I've never really thought about it that much, because I think, and I never really thought about it that much because I think Cherie, again, this is where I think that power of that coaching, which you do on a daily basis, and so well, is I think that she took something that to say you don't, I think you've got a problem with goals. In most any other case, that's going to feel a lot like judgment, and like I'm going to be penalized for that.
Hmm.
And I never said I don't like goals. She's the one that brought it up. She's like, I don't think you like the word goals. It wasn't like I said, I hate the word goals. I can talk about it now because she brought that to the forefront
Right.
and said, I don't think you like the word goals. So, solution, we're not going to use it because I don't think,
Hmm.
but what I do find is the things that matter to you personally, that you feel like are born inside of you, that they're truly yours, that we'll call intentions. I think those matter to you.
Hmm.
And they're not really different than goals. They're just defined differently, and it comes from a different place. So let's just go with that. And it was like, okay, let's go with that. I actually like that. And it was just, again, it was getting in a relationship with somebody who was trying to help me be the best I could be, realizing who I was and helping me discover who I was and where I had issues and where I had opportunities, and not judging any of it.
Hmm.
And just looking at next and looking at the solution and looking at the workaround and and it's because that's kind of what we all do.
Hmm.
But I think it's, I've got a couple of people I coach that begged me to coach a couple of years ago. And I was like, I don't want to coach. I hate coaching. I didn't like coaching when I was coaching. But I will tell you on the front side of that, I said, look, I don't know what you're going to pay me for, because I mean, I don't have a system, right? I mean, I have a relationship with you, and I will talk to you, and I will just it's going to go where it's going to go. But I'm not trying to make something happen, and I'm not trying to but we're going to figure it all out. And it's actually been pretty rewarding for me. And it's been a great test for me in that little compartment of my life to be in relationship with these people that way, and to kind of do it the way I do it, mm-hmm. and feel okay about it. But on the front end, just say, look, if you're looking for a system, or this is what we're going to do, and we're going to have this sheet, and we're going to do this, whatever it is, I think that's awesome. But if you're looking for that, I'm going to severely disappoint you.
Other thing I'll just maybe circle back on, and then that might bring us to a little bit of a pause, if you'd like. It's going back to like creating clarity when there is uncertainty. And part of you and Jerry and your team coming up with the quarterly market stats thing and filling movie theaters. And I think, and you mentioned this briefly, but perhaps you'll build on it a little bit. It feels a little bit like that now also, where you're saying, okay, there's a lot of uncertainty, and yet there is a way to begin to gain some certainty. In that example, mining market data when it previously wasn't done before. However, building on top of that, teaching people how to have the conversations around what that meant. And it's a gift that you certainly have. And I wonder if this time is like that time where the importance of, I think I wrote it down earlier, you said the power of the conversation versus the power of the presentation. So I don't know if there's anything you want to tease out there on the importance of conversations, dialogues, et cetera.
Yeah, I think right now we've got, like, everybody should be on the phone with their database right now, right? Like you can't be on the telephone or sitting in front of somebody enough right now, because the pressure is a little bit off. Like the pressure's on you because you're fumbling for the keys to the car, but the pressure of having conversations with your people, again, we don't know anything right now. Like we have a pass for a little while. So go find out what people are struggling with or what their thoughts are, and just have conversations with them without having to feel like you have to script them into a direction or an answer or a mindset. Or I think the power of those people, because there's a lot of people in our business who are masters at communicating with people and connecting on that level. Mm-hmm. This is an opportunity, if nothing else, this is an opportunity to connect on a human level without an agenda other than, I'm your real estate professional, or whatever professional you are if you're watching this, but I'm your real estate professional and care about you. And I'm just calling to talk about anything you want to talk about. I mean, the news has been crazy. Our business is kind of weird. We're going through some changes in the way that's done fundamentally, yet at the same time, nothing's really changed. I mean, it can be very confusing, and it can be simple, and it can be very complicated all at the same time, depending on where you are. So what's going on, and just have a conversation with people, just talk about whatever, because you don't have to land a plane necessarily. You just need to talk. And I think people will love the fact that they can talk to somebody that says, look, I sell as many houses as most people in my area, and we're trying to figure a few things out on our own. So nobody's got all the answers just yet. Mm-hmm. But as soon as we can have all the answers, we're going to have them first.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. In our prep call a couple of weeks ago, you made a comment that I've sort of riffed on, so I'll tee it up for you, and then you can run with it. Basically saying that for a lot of agents, it's become a self-fulfilling prophecy that they're not generating as much business out of their database, that they had succumbed to the fact that, golden handcuff, locked up, perfectly stuck, or, whatever phrase you want to use for the people who have great houses and super low interest rates. And as a result, actively under-communicated, maybe passively communicated, but actively under-communicated with their sphere over the past 12 to 24 months. So I wonder if you'll just build on that for a little bit, please.
Yeah, I'd love to. It's true though, but I think you have to be careful of the story you tell yourself, right? I mean, we've learned that. I mean, we've learned it 50,000 times in our lifetime, and we'll learn it 50,000 times more. That's just the way life goes. But we have to get in the middle of screwing it up again before we realize, like, oh, I'm screwing that up again. We do tell ourselves a story. Like, you know what? Like, nobody's moving. right? Well, guess what? People are moving. People are dying, people are divorcing. I mean, that's very real. And maybe there's a lot less of the we'd like to move, but it's not zero.
Mm-hmm.
It's just less. But the life changes that go on no matter what, they go on whether the market's this or that or up or down or fast or slow. It just, life changes happen. So people are moving, people are selling, people need to sell, people need to buy. You need to find those people. And maybe you need to talk to twice as many people to find the people that need to do that. So go talk to twice as many people. It's, we did Scott Tolar in Florida and I did a mastermind, and we had this thing that said, there are three forms of your lead generation falls into three categories for the most part. The categories are aggressive. It's aggressive, passive aggressive, and passive. Those are the three categories. And everything you do from a lead generation standpoint has to be put in one of those three categories. And aggressive lead generation is stuff that's going to close, and that would close in 6 months or less. Mm-hmm. Passive aggressive is stuff that would close in 6 months to a year. And passive is something that would close beyond a year or two. Mm-hmm. And when you really look at most lead generation efforts, most of it falls into passive aggressive to passive. Mm-hmm. The idea of like picking up the 10,000 pound phone and actually calling and asking and asking what your real estate strategy is, and asking what your thoughts are with this market. And if you could move into this house, move out of this house and move to another house, what would that look like? And is there anything keeping you from that? Yes, it's the interest rates. Yes, it's my husband. Yes, it's whatever it is. I don't know. Mm-hmm. But if you look at it, if you're running a business and you're running a team and you're in charge of lead generation for your business, that's a very interesting audit of your dollars and energy and where they're going. And if you're spending lots of dollars and lots of energies on ships that are far, far away, mm-hmm. you need to look at how to run different plays that are going to land planes like now.
Right.
And cause things to happen now. And I think that the cheese has moved a little bit, and I think people just need to figure out how to kind of change what they're doing so that they get faster results.
Sure. Definitely.
It's like, lifters and leaners.
Yeah. Yeah. Say a little more about lifters and leaners, if you don't mind.
Yeah, I put it in the book, but it's just you got people around you that either are sucking the life out of you or leaning on you for something, and other people that are just giving you life and pulling you up out of where you are. I think everybody's you've got to be surrounded by both, but not a lot of people have both. A lot of people are just surrounded by this. I think a lot of people are surrounded by leaners and they don't even know it.
Right.
Right. And then you meet somebody and it's like, oh, this is what that looks like. That's mm-hmm. awesome. I need more people like you in my life.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, let's talk about effortless. 18 F words to reframe and repurpose your life.
Sure.
Where would you like to start?
Oof. Man. Where would I like to start? I think forking, and we talked about float a little bit. I mean, I think float and forking are probably pretty appropriate right now when you think about it. I mean, mm-hmm. It's that forking concept is just the idea. I mean, I think, in the book, I go back and I went and I traced back like the first adult decision that I made, which was, where am I going to go to college? Mm-hmm. Right. And I had different choices, and I chose to go to Georgia Tech. So that was like from one plot to the next. Mm-hmm. And then it was like, from there, it's, do I go into real estate or do I get a real job? Do I do, and then where do I go? What do I do? And when you look back on your life, there, at every place there was like a directional change in your life.
Mhm.
Sometimes we architect that change and we go, I'm going to do this and I'm gone, right? Sometimes that decision's made for us. We're fired. We get divorced. Somebody dies. I mean, there are things that just happen to us in life, and sometimes those happenings create a directional change in our life just the same, and not at all by our will or intention.
Mhm.
And when you go back and you connect the dots on, then I did that, and then I could have done this or that, and this is what happened, and that's when I lost my job, and that's ended up here because and if that didn't happen, I would have never gotten here, and then I would have never gotten here. And you look back and you go, all those points in my life where I was like questioning God or cursing the universe or wishing that none of this was ever like, if you go back and you connect all these directional changes that happened, where you are you wouldn't be where you are without them. And so it gives you a lot of gratitude for the changes that occurred that you chose, as well as the changes that occurred that you didn't choose and maybe didn't even want, and that maybe you've even spent way too many years bitching about. And when you realize, truth, I actually should be thankful for that now that I look back on it from 30,000 feet.
Mhm.
And so I kind of think that, just tying into how our conversation started today, it's whatever's happening right now in the real estate world it's going to be a plot on a map,
Mhm.
and it's going to connect you to a new career. Maybe
Mhm.
if this doesn't work out for you, it may propel you to heights you didn't know were coming as fast as they were about to come because of these changes and the way the choices you made as a leader. But nonetheless, I truly believe that all this little dust storm of economics and activity and real estate market and lawsuits, it's going to be a plot on a map, and it's going to be a springboard to something different and probably greater, whether it's the next move or the next move after that or the next move after that. You're going to look back on it and go, if whatever happened hadn't happened, I wouldn't be where I'm at
Mhm.
today, 10
Mhm.
years from now.
Mhm.
Right.
Mhm.
So I love the forking concept, because I think we all kind of look back on things, but when you truly, as silly as it sounds, but that visual of just connecting the dots and retracing your path as an adult,
Mhm.
it's kind of cool. And in some cases, it's possible too that it may just say you're a shitty decision maker, and maybe you should get a board to help you make decisions of magnitude. But for the most part, I think most people look back on that exercise with gratitude and go, I've been complaining about something that I really should have appreciation for.
Mhm. Mhm.
So I
I've
don't
heard you
know.
say
We'll see.
before, and I won't get the wording exactly right, so please feel free to correct me. Something to the effect of, no matter how difficult things are right now, 10 years from now, you'll tell this story in 5 minutes or less, something to that effect.
Yeah, that was Andy Stanley,
Mhm.
the preacher here in Atlanta. He's really gifted at messages. And I mean, he said it years and years ago. He said, "Yeah, whatever you're going through right now, you're going to talk about in 30 seconds or less in 5 years. It's going to come up, and you're going to go, that was when I was going through my divorce, or that was when I was in rehab, or that was when I was, you know, floundering at whatever." And it just it's consuming your screen right now, but it really does become a 30-second or less mention
Mhm.
down the road. And I think, when you look at this thing and we talk about mindset with like all things going on, it's fascinating to me, the people that look like it's going to have a negative impact on their career.
Mhm.
Right there, I mean, there's that sense, whether they say that specifically or it's just the way they talk about it. They're kind of saying it like it's almost like people are looking like, should I be looking for the getaway boat should I be looking for something? And I think you've got to look at yourself and go, because there are a lot of people who are like, in 5 years, I don't know what I'm going to be doing in this business, but I'm going to be leading it and I'm going to be crushing it.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So this is a hurdle in the race to get over, but this is early in the race for me. I mean, we got lots of, I mean, there's going to be another hurdle after this, and there's going to be another hurdle after that.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm in this for the long haul, and I'm in it to win it.
Mm-hmm.
And I think if your dialogue is in any way, shape, or form getting overly victimized, you may be subconsciously trying to talk yourself out of the race entirely. And I'd be careful. I'd watch that.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I'd watch that.
Yeah.
Because there's nothing more powerful than what we say to ourselves.
Absolutely. The other topic we had mentioned covering from effortless is this idea of float, of counterbalancing this busyness and drive and focus on productivity and however you might otherwise describe it, and having this purposeful time to slow down. And love for you to speak to that, please.
I mean, I think we're all, whether it's constantly fighting that or whether we just fight it at different times in our life, I think if you're in a business like real estate where you earn what you kill, basically, you have to be production focused. And so busy is a great way to kind of make you feel like you're being productive. Mm-hmm. And sometimes we get so caught up in being busy that we actually lose productivity. But more importantly, I think we just kind of lose senses of who we are. I mean, if you look at, look at this business for the most part. I mean, you go to any event and you're going to see a lot of people who are a little heavier than they should be, drink a little more than they probably should be drinking, probably are out on the back deck smoking more than they think they should be smoking. I mean, we kind of pick up these habits and we've kind of taken a slow erosion physically, and it's nothing more than the tolls of a lack of prioritization of how we spend our time or how we let what we do affect us on a daily basis. So I think everybody's kind of I think floats, for me, it's a really personal chapter because it just means something different to everybody. I mean, some people need, major rehabilitation when it comes to time management and stress management. Some people just need some tweaks and a couple of things to do that are more mindful. But I think when Jerry and I were kind of going through our whole transition, I can't remember how. I remember we read a couple of articles like with Jerry Seinfeld and some other people that had taken up this thing called transcendental meditation. It's called TM. And, I'd always thought about meditation as something that was very ritualistic and all kinds of stuff. And we had read a couple of things that this TM thing was just kind of like a simple and not ritualistic kind of way to kind of get centered and whatever. So we kind of looked into it, and there's a place here in Atlanta where you could go and take a class and get certified, personally certified for your own meditative TM thing. And part of that is like you get your like this mantra, and like nobody's supposed to know. Like Jerry doesn't know mine. I don't know what hers is after all these. I mean, I just don't know what it is. It's just yours, and it's your little thing. And it's what I'll use it at night when I can't sleep. I learned like in an instant, I can take 15 minutes and I can pull over, pull aside, step outside, go somewhere. And I learned a very valuable skill of how to just stop and be still for like 20 minutes. Mm-hmm. And the people that really crush it do it like, twice a day. I mean, I might do it twice a week, right? But but for a while I was doing it daily. Mm-hmm. And it was just a powerful tool for me to realize that you can you might not be able to stop the storm, but you can go below the surface
Mm-hmm.
and have it turn into like a dull background noise.
Hmm.
And when you realize you've kind of got the power to do that, it's pretty, I don't know what it does, but it really is a confidence builder somewhere where you just kind of realize that at any time have the power to slow things down.
Mm-hmm.
And everybody needs something different. That was really important for us. And it just kind of created some calmness in a pretty chaotic world at the time. But that was a big thing for me from a float standpoint. And then I think I think people just need to know what their limits are. I mean, it's or what you need. And I don't think again, I think behaviorally, if you're in this business, you're probably gifted serving other people
Mm-hmm.
and taking care of other people, and you like that, and it defines who you are on some level, or you believe it's a part of your identity that you'll be judged by, and you want to make sure you're serving people at all costs and even to your own expense. And so I think a lot of great realtors get so caught up in the chase and the winnings and the rewards and the accolades and just the reward of feeling like I did something great for a lot of people, that you become an afterthought. And it doesn't, how many people do we know that's, had a heart attack or had whatever, and you're like, oh shit, I need to eat better and I need to that's a bad time to figure out that you need to start living right. I mean, and you're so good at the health thing and the, longevity and just the stuff we've talked about. The book you sent me it's got some fascinating stuff in it too. And I don't think people put enough stock in. I remember being in college. There was I went to Georgia Tech, and I can't remember what the class was, but there was a guy who taught a class on success, and it was really impactful to me. God, what was his name? Griezmann. I can't remember his name, but anyway, he just interviewed successful people.
Mm-hmm.
That was what his career was. And I can't remember what he did, but I remember going into class one day and he goes, okay, here's the problem. Here it was like an exercise. He says, so here's what happens. You're who you are. Somebody knocks on your door and says you had a great uncle that passed away and you were in his will. And this uncle of yours has left you Kentucky Derby winning racehorse.
Okay.
That is in its prime. And he wants you to have the horse. So you are now the proud owner of a Kentucky Derby running racehorse. Now, what are you going to do with this horse? What are you going to do? And everybody's like, you start scrambling around. It's like, well, I got to, figure out who the best trainer is, right? Mm-hmm. And I got to figure what do horses eat. What's the best thing a horse can eat? Like, how do you exercise a Kentucky Derby? I mean, what do they have to run all the day? Do they have to spend the time in the pasture? What the track? Like how do I? They need to exercise, and they need to, and like we're doing this whole Olympic routine for like, and trying to figure this thing out. He lets us do this for like half an hour, right? Mm-hmm. You're like, man, I'm gonna make so much money off this friggin' racehorse. It's gonna be amazing. And then he just says, everybody makes their presentations. I mean, the whole thing goes through the whole thing. The presentation. Here's what we're going to do. This is what I would do with the horse, and this is who I'm going to call. And I know a guy who does horses, and I'm going to get him, and I'm going to like the whole thing. And he says, "This is awesome." He's like, "This is awesome." He's like, He said, "I think I've gotten some ideas from all of you guys about how I could." If it were me, what I would do in that situation. So you guys are smart and that's awesome. He said, I've got one question for you. What makes this horse more valuable than you? And we all just went, what? And he said, would you feed the horse what you feed yourself? Would you exercise the horse the way you exercise yourself? I mean, he went through all this, and
Sure.
it was just like, damn it. I mean, just had us on a spit roaster. I mean, it was just, but it was such a great, I never forgot that. I mean, it was just like there's so much truth to the stuff we put value in.
Mm-hmm.
And he goes, people, it's a friggin' horse.
Mm-hmm.
It's a horse.
Mm-hmm.
That you're putting more value on a horse than you are yourself. He said, don't ever do that. Yeah. You know, I mean, it's just like, why would, but it was, I don't think you're ever, I mean, I think that's a message that plays at any age, at any whatever, but it's just, and I think what are we doing to take care of ourselves? And I think the idea of sitting down and going, what is it that I need to be happy? Mm-hmm. What is it that I need? What steps could I take to be a little more healthy? What steps could I take to be a little whatever? I mean, look, I'm 45 pounds lighter than I was 10 years ago.
Yeah.
You know, 45 pounds. That's a lot. I haven't had a soda in 10 years.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, it's just like simple stuff, just simple stuff. I mean, it's what I found out was like 80% of it was what I put in my mouth. Mm-hmm. 20% of it was exercise. Mm-hmm. But it was shocking how much weight you lose when you stop eating like shit. You know?
Hang on this thread for just a second, because I know I have thought this before, and perhaps some people watching or listening to this are thinking the same thing. Is, all right, Shaun, I get that. Like, all of that makes sense, and I know that. But practically, I got this really busy busy life, and so like, how do I start, or how do I get over that hump of, I know this, yet I haven't taken meaningful action on it?
Yeah, so I would say, just in my own experience, it's in terms of eating, right? What's the one thing you eat or drink that you know you should not be eating or drinking? Mm-hmm. Right? Mm-hmm. I mentioned sodas. Like, if you never drank another soda again in your life, you probably just lost 10 to 15 pounds.
Yep.
Maybe. I don't know. I mean, but that, just that stupid thing. If you did nothing else, right? And that was just a rule you implemented today. Like, that's a practical rule anybody can play, right? But I think there's like little decisions like that where you can say, you know, it's kind of like the person trying to quit smoking, right? It's just like, all right, so you know what? I'm not going to have dessert, except I'm not going to eat anything sweet. And I'm going to have my meals, but I'm not going to have the brownie or the cookie or the cake but I can have that on Friday. I remember having a trainer who said he looked like a freaking Greek god, but he had what he called Fuck It Friday. Uh-huh. And Fuck It Friday was he could eat anything he wanted on Friday. Uh-huh. And that was his day. So, but I thought that was a cool rule, because it wasn't like, I never touch whatever. You know, it was like, okay, so what makes sense? So I think something like that is simple and stupid. But the other, when it comes to time for me, in my experience with people, is people go, well, I'm just not a morning person, right? I mean, we hear I'm just not a morning person. And I kind of call bullshit on that, because I think I'm not either. I don't think I think when people say they're not a morning person, it says, I'm somebody who needs X amount of sleep. That doesn't have anything to do with whether you get up at 9 or 6. Mm-hmm. It's all about when you go to bed. So for the people that say I'm not a morning person, my first question is, well, what time do you go to bed? Mm-hmm. And if they say midnight, and say, well, I wouldn't be a morning person either if I had to get up early, right? I mean, like nowadays, like, I mean, at 10 o'clock, like I'm ready to go to bed, you know. And you know, what was fascinating in COVID, I don't know if you experienced this, but I can remember in COVID, I mean, Jerry and I was like, I think we were getting like an average of like 9.5 hours a night of sleep in COVID. Uh-huh. I mean, it was an unbelievable benefit of that for me, because I never thought, I mean, I don't usually require that much sleep, but having that time where it's just like, I don't know, let's just go to bed. It's been a long day of nothing. Let's just go to bed. And you go to bed and you go to sleep, and we'd sleep for 9.5, literally like 9 hours. And I couldn't believe I was sleeping so much and that often consistently. But man, I felt great.
Mm-hmm.
It's I think if most people got up an hour or so earlier,
Mm-hmm.
um, I think you can do some cool things from 6 to 7,
Mm-hmm.
before the world gets going. And if you're getting up at 7 or 6:30 to get your kids to school, I'd get up an hour earlier than you need to get up,
Mm-hmm.
which means you need to go to bed an hour earlier than you're used to going to bed.
Mm-hmm.
And if you can back that clock up and do that and get up, there's no time more peaceful and more beneficial than while everybody else is sleeping.
Yeah.
There's just no better time. And it's and I get it. The people that say they get up at 5:30, I'm not there. But I mean, but I can get up at 6 o'clock, and I can get up at 6:30. I get up at 6:30 pretty much every day anyway, for the most part, just on my own.
Mm-hmm.
But I actually, but part of that is I want to get up well ahead of anybody else in my house,
Mm-hmm.
because I want to make I'm a coffee snob. I've got a great coffee maker. I make lattes, and I make the best latte you'll ever have in your life. And I look forward to it. When I'm on trips, I can't wait to get home to make myself a cup of coffee.
Yeah.
And so, like, I get up and I want to make that cup of coffee. I want to sit, and I've got this cool little, we call it, it's a whiskey room. It's like we have the alcohol and whatever in there, but there's a TV, there's comfortable chairs. It's kind of a darker room in our house, and I go sitting there, and I've got about an hour where I can just kind of look at stuff, and I can be doom scrolling. I can meditate. I can read. I can make a outline. I don't have any rules for that time other than it's my time.
Mm-hmm.
And it's really, nobody's asking me for anything. I don't have to take anybody anywhere. I don't have to do anything. There's nobody I could call because they're not up. And it's just, it's a really, when I start my day out with that little pocket of time, it makes the day better. I mean, it just makes the day better. I mean, sometimes you pray, sometimes you meditate, sometimes you do both, sometimes you do none of it, sometimes you watch ESPN. Sometimes, I mean, it's just my time, and I need my time before anybody else needs me, because once everybody's up, everybody in this house needs me,
Mm-hmm.
and people outside of this house need me,
Mm-hmm.
and it's just, I need me for a little bit. And and I'm telling you, that's a little float. And it doesn't
Mm-hmm.
have to be, it's just a little float. It's, do you remember, Dr. Fred Gross? Do you remember Dr. Fred Gross?
I do. Yeah.
I say that like he's dead. I don't know whether he's dead or alive. He was definitely old in terms of, but I think he is still alive. I think it was Australia or New Zealand or something.
Yeah. I'm not sure.
His little point system. Do you remember his point system?
Legally. Yeah.
So his point system was, he says, if you want to learn to appreciate things, you have to learn to appreciate the little things.
Mm.
So his exercise was, I might get these points wrong, but let me think. So he'd say, I want you to make a list of everything would go into making a day great. Things that you would just, that you appreciate about, if any of these things happen in the course of a day, they're part of a great day, right? A great cup of coffee, a walk, a workout, a nice dinner, talking to your kids, kissing your wife, making love to your spouse, whatever that is in a day, right? And those are, let's say they're 25 points. 25? Tens. Let's say they're 10 points. Those are 10 points apiece, right? 10 points for a cup of coffee, 10 points for a call from your kid, 10 points, whatever. He said, now think about everything that would, daily would be too much, but weekly that would make, maybe it's a massage, maybe it's a round of golf, maybe it's a really nice dinner with your spouse, a date night. I mean, just things that would just be a weekly thing. Those are 25s, right? Every one of those is 25 points. And then what would need to happen in the course of a month to make a month great, right? Maybe that's a massage, maybe that's two massages, maybe that's a long weekend getaway with my spouse or something like that. And then those are 50s, and then 75s are quarterly, and then hundreds are semi-annual to annual. And then 200 points is like bucket list stuff. Like to see the pyramids or ride a camel or any of that stuff, right? And his whole thing was, if you want to get to the bucket list stuff, if you want to rack up as many 200s and hundreds on your list as you can, the secret to getting those is to appreciate the tens. And if you appreciate the tens like they are the hundreds and 200s, you will absolutely get the hundreds and 200s. We just gloss over all these little things. And what I really love about his system is it's just daily gratitude for the stuff, and it makes you think, what's on my list? And if you've really got a list that you made out of daily, weekly things, and you looked at in that little hour in the morning that was your time before anybody else, and you realize, you know what? I actually could kiss my wife today. I actually could, passionately kiss my wife today. I could actually, go work out. I could actually go on a walk. I could actually, I've got like 50 tens I could get right here. And like, you're already thinking about it, and then you can do it. And then it's like, but he says, if you get good at appreciating the little things, the big stuff is easy. But the big stuff, the only reason the big stuff is hard is because you don't appreciate the little stuff. And I think when this float thing, that's why I think it's not so much, people think, well, I can't take a sabbatical for a year. I'm not asking you to, but I am saying maybe it is an hour in the morning, right? Maybe it is a this, or maybe it is a that, or maybe you just know you need to take your wife on vacation for a week, and you guys need to go reconnect and just be you and shut the world out. Or you may need a week of just float time there. And then it may just be that you need something, you just need to eat better, or whatever that means to you. I think there's a lot of little ways that people can kind of just realize that you've got control, that you're just giving away. And I think it's really, really, really important to have times when you're not chasing closing, and you're not lead generating, and you're not climbing mountains, and you're not trying to conquer the hill, and you're just kind of breathing and realizing, boy, this is not, I can binge watch an 8-episode thing on Netflix in 2 nights. And you know what? I actually needed that, I was riding a roller coaster. We were in California this summer, and I think, this is why people, I think you can't think about anything else when you're on a crazy roller coaster.
Right.
Whether you like them or not. I mean, it's like, you can't worry about whatever you're worried about while you're riding. I mean, it's pretty hard. I mean, you're worried about just not falling off, or what's coming next, or the turn that's going to come. I mean, it's just, I think we just need those things where you realize you've got the power to just shut the world out for a minute. And if you're not doing that consistently, it's going to catch up with you. And you're just going to, if you don't burn out, you're going to rust out. And there's no reason for either, really. I mean, there's no reason for either. I mean, the fact that you're tired is because your priorities are off and you're not taking care of yourself.
Right.
So if you're not spending your time with the right people, and you're not doing the right things with yourself, and you're not spending the right things with your time doing the right things, you're going to be tired, because you're not doing anything that feels great at the end of the day. Or yields rewards that are worth the effort that you're doing. That's what creates tired. But when you're doing stuff, you can put forth the same effort and spend it with the right people and doing the right things with yourself and your body and your time, that the same effort and energy goes out, but you still have all this energy left over because you're excited about what you're doing and you're excited about who you're doing it with. And you're frankly healthier and able to do it.
Sure.
So it's interesting. I mean, it's misery loves company, mediocrity loves it more, and we're surrounded by it. The definition of average is average. I mean, average is everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
Average means that everywhere you look is average. The easy thing to spot, anything you're doing without thinking about it, is probably average.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And if you want more for yourself, you have to realize you've got to get above average. And you've got to get around. You got to look at the people around you and realize they're probably average.
Mm-hmm. And I would imagine you've observed this. I know I have, as part of this journey that we're talking about being more purposeful, and certainly not an expert on it, but pretty far down the path. I think what's confusing to some, and maybe you'll speak to this, is that it is likely that the quantity of work produced goes down, but the quality of the work exponentially goes up.
I think if you look, you grew up in the age of I did, where you probably read The Aladdin Factor,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
right? I mean, the size of your questions determines the size of your answers. I mean, it's if that's what you want and you ask, how do I get that? Then yes.
Mm-hmm.
Right. I mean, look, you're probably one of the most focused and you're just probably one of the most focused people I know. I mean, in terms of like, you know what you want, you set your sights on things and you go after them. You study, you leave nothing to chance. You leave no stone unturned. I mean, look, the clues you leave around the way you live your life are plentiful.
Thank you.
Like what's important to you in that? So, I mean, like, you talk about influences. You're reading the books and you're listening to, like, what is it that impacts you and makes you continue that journey for yourself of being healthy and mindful and wanting to live a long, prosperous life?
Mm-hmm. The first thing that comes to mind for me, and I'll be brief on this, and I'm sure you have lots to contribute on it as well. There's this interesting juxtaposition that I'm exploring that I'm affectionately calling the fulfilled entrepreneur. And as you might imagine, pursuing fulfillment and everything that means, and then maintaining the entrepreneurial spirit that and those who are watching or listening to this have, and proposing, I'm certainly not the first one to propose this idea, but to propose that you can be both. It's not you're fulfilled, but you have to forego your entrepreneurial spirit to do it, or you're
That's
a
right.
fantastic entrepreneur who ends up, like you said, burnout or rusted out. I really liked that phrase. I feel like, for me at least, the first maybe 15 or 20 years has been very heavily focused on the entrepreneur piece. I feel like I got a pretty good tool set there. And maybe just over the past 18 to 24 months, really more fully exploring the fulfilled part of it. And somewhere those two roads are going to intersect. And I'm not sure where it will be, but I'm intrigued by talking with people like you and others who will be guests on our show who are further, I perceive to be further down that path than me, and we'll see where it lands.
Well, it'll land in the right spot. But I mean, that's no different than us saying you've got to decide what your career what you want your career to look and feel like in 5 to 10 years. Because when you look that way, I mean, you don't even notice the wake when you're going over it, right? It's just part of the process. It's that's, I'd put all my money on you landing wherever you want to land. But
thank you.
It's interesting. I had a conversation with some people at my company, earlier this year, about taking a role that would have required a lot of travel. And I just said, as much as I want to make a difference, that's not the way I want to do it. I was like, I'm just not, It's like, I really cherish the marriage I have, and I don't really, nothing is going to stand in the way of that.
Right.
And there was a time in my life where that was like, oh, that was an opportunity. I will, if somebody wants me to do something and give me great responsibility, I will take it and run with it. And I'll figure out the rest. Right.
Yeah.
Well, you can't figure out the rest.
Uh-huh.
It's like, you have to know what your priorities are, and you got to know that I'm going to take care of the things that are important to me. And as long as I'm really clear about what those things are, I can take care of them. And the simple part is it's really only one or two or three things.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're clear on the one or two or three things, the other 107 that come along, it's that rock, paper, scissors game. Nothing wins over the one, two, or three.
Yeah. Yeah. I love it. I love it. As we kind of move here to wrap up, I'm curious, sort of a question we had discussed a little bit at the top is, if you looked back, you had the opportunity to rewind the tape or undo a decision or redo a decision, are there any that come to mind?
Whew. Probably a lot. It's funny. I think you think about that as a parent with your kids, right? I mean, you know what's going on in your head all your life, and for me, I think it was, just thinking that, you had to earn your way along the way, all the time. And as you kind of get older and you go through life, you realize you never really had to earn your way through. You just, that was a story you told yourself,
Mm-hmm.
that you really could just, instead of go from A to B to C to D to E to F, you really could have gone straight to D.
Mm-hmm.
You really could have gone straight to F if you didn't have this thing that you had to touch the bases at B, C, and it just, earning my way into things. And it's, I would go back and try to figure out how to teach myself not to feel like that. And I don't mean that from a working standpoint. Like, I love contributing, and that's really important part of who I am, but not feeling like that you couldn't do something else until you did something else.
Mm-hmm.
I think that was a fallacy that probably I figured out too late in life. If I could go back and fix that. But I say that, and then I kind of go back, and I really do believe that everyone's timing is divine, and things happen the way they're supposed to and when they're supposed to. So I struggle with that too.
Mm-hmm.
God, looking back, I probably wouldn't have gone to Georgia Tech, probably, because it was so hard. I mean, it was just a hard school for me, and it was just. And for what? I mean, I get to talk about that I went there. I mean, I never went on a job interview. I never went and used my degree. I've only used my degree in conversations with people. I mean, I've literally, like, I got my real estate license and fell in love with real estate. And then I just said, well, I'll finish college just in case I don't like real estate. I'll have a degree.
Right.
And so I probably would have gone somewhere more fun and had a blast instead of studying all the time.
Mm-hmm.
But no, I mean, it's,
Is there something, as you're thinking on this, is there something maybe that you do now really well that you catch yourself saying, man, I should have done that sooner?
No, there's not actually. That's a no for me. I mean, it's now I'm kind of at the point where I'm trying to figure out, what do I want to do next,
Mm-hmm.
right? And I'm looking for that next thing. I don't know if I told you I'd partnered with this VC company to come up with this thing called feecentral.com. That idea came like right after the NAR settlement came up, and I was like, nobody's thinking about the fact that this stupid rule is going to cause so much chaos in our industry. And so I said, we've got to have a place where people, if they can't put in the MLS, we got to have a place where people can figure out what the compensation is going to be to a buyer's agent. Because if it's going to rely on phone calls to the listing agent,
Mm-hmm.
that's going to be a pain in the ass for all the buyer's agents. They got to show property on the weekend. But more importantly, when I get the new listing for $1 million, on Friday, and I have to field, 40 phone calls in the next 6 hours,
Mm-hmm.
or my people do.
Mm-hmm.
That just seems like an insane ritual to go through. So we created Fee Central, and I don't know whether it's going to do anything or not. I mean, it's kind of we don't. I think people are scared of it from a lawsuit standpoint of hitting a tripwire or something. But I mean, all my attorneys here say it's actually a great idea. There's nothing. It's the phone call without the phone call,
Right.
because the way it's set up is a listing agent has to put their listing in it, and it
Mm-hmm.
has to put their compensation in it, and they
Sure.
can put a form in there. And the only way for a buyer to find it is to put the address of the listing in, and it'll pop up. They can't search for all properties with compensations of X or whatever it is.
Mm-hmm.
They can only do it like a Google search where you say 123 Banana Street, and then
Mm-hmm.
it'll say, well, okay, here's the price and here's the compensation. So I'm pretty excited about it. And I think if we can get past this fear thing, I think it'll probably go away. And that's kind of that was kind of a big step for me, to be honest with you, in line with that question, because it was just, there's a lot of times in my life where I've thought of great things and just didn't have the time or confidence or know anybody or the direction or whatever. But there was a guy I knew who's a friend of one of our kids' parents, and he had sold a company that he had come up with a thing for the appraisal industry and sold off and made a bunch of money. And now they take it and they do kind of technology, venture capital. They collaborate with people on their ideas.
Mm-hmm.
So I took it to him and I was like, what do you think about this? He's like, I love it.
Yeah.
He's like, let's do it. So that's kind of how it happened. And it was kind of fun to kind of step into something completely different. That was just, the idea was, I think our industry is going to need this tool,
Sure.
just to save them frustration. So we'll see what happens with it. And I'll be anxious to see whether anything comes of it, but it's not, that's kind of been that's just a creative thing that kind of came out of just knowing our industry and knowing what I thought was going to come. And
Mm-hmm.
we'll see, we'll see. But I don't have I'm trying to figure out what I want to do next when I grow up.
Yeah.
Cause I don't know.
There's an interesting,
like you, I don't want to compromise. I don't want to compromise the quality of my life to do it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. There's sort of an interesting observation from my end. This is the ultimate compliment. As an athlete, this will resonate with you. You have the players who are more like the feel players, and you have the players who are more like the technical, fundamental type players.
Yeah.
My interactions with you over the years, you strike me as much more of a feel player of the game, and perhaps you're in one of those moments right now where there's like waiting for the right feels to come along.
For sure. I've always been extremely feeling driven, and I do kind of feel for things that's probably a very accurate assessment. If I were describing myself between the two, that's probably what I would say.
Yeah. Well,
so I'll take that as a compliment.
Yeah, absolutely. It's certainly intended that way. I think it'll be exciting to see what comes next. Share with me, Shaun, if you don't mind, any parting words or thoughts or wisdom that you have for the folks before we wrap up, please.
Well, this has been fun. I can't believe we've had 3 hours already of this conversation, but it's, I think everybody just needs to settle down in times of change and chaos. And I think we're a little bit in that, just on the back end of this NAR stuff. And again, I think it's embrace change like it was your idea. Mm-hmm. And be really true to who you are. I mean, I think these things are an opportunity we talked about the skills and the mindset. And I think there's nothing those two things are going to control everything about your business. Mm-hmm. Is everybody thinking properly, and does everybody have the skills to go out and execute properly? And if anything's lacking in the two, so will be your revenue and your profits. But if you've got the right mindsets and people on your team, share it. Like I said, if you're the most excited person about your business, you need to probably relook at the cultural elements of your business and figure out how to improve it. Because you can have a business where everybody that is a part of it is super excited about it. Mm-hmm. It's funny. I've got a friend of mine who is he was actually our trainer. That's how we met him. And we've become friends. And he actually is getting married to a realtor friend of ours soon. But he's become a extremely studied person in the health and wellness space. And he's gotten out of training 2 years ago. And now he's got a wellness center in Buckhead that he is doing just amazing things. I mean, he can tell you about every peptide that is available and exactly what it does and how it can help you based on what your issues are.
Mm-hmm.
He has infrared beds, and he has oxygen chambers, and he has all these things that will tell you how old you are and how but he is, I mean, it's like having like an LA, you know, person like right here. And I'm so happy for him because he has gone from just being a trainer and going to like crushing it, like crushing it. And he's such a humble person. And we had coffee a week ago because we were at a party, and he was talking about how to figure out he really wants to take care of his people. He's like, he's like, this is all new. We're like barely in our first year. I haven't gone through the whole cycle, and everybody wants a piece of something, and I'm trying to figure it out. And so I said, I think we can come up with a profit sharing program that, would be a cool way to, honor the people that are there and what they do and how they contribute to the business. And so we sat down for coffee and kind of went through that. And he was just like, oh my God, this is fantastic. But he doesn't know. All he knows is he's very grateful for the people that are around him, whether it's us or other people that he knows that just can give him advice from here or there, or the people that actually show up for work every day. He's got a guy that used to be homeless that's doing the front desk and now in charge of ordering the stuff, and he's changed this guy's life. I mean, like, changed his life, and he loves it, and he wants to continue to change it. It's like not good enough where it is. And it's fun to see somebody with a small business that's just bubbling and probably going to explode beyond belief. And his focus is so much on, I want this to feel right. I don't want anybody to come in here and not feel like they're talking to somebody who doesn't just love what they do and totally understand what we're doing here and how we're helping people's lives. I mean, he's just got it. And it's just out of pure excitement for what he's doing and how he's helping people. And I think we got to get back to that.
Mm-hmm.
I think this business it kind of ebbs and flows, but I think when it's on the other end of it, you can look back and go, I think I've been way too transactional. I've been way too focused on the deal, or I've been way too focused on the volume, or I've been way too focused on the awards, and and I forgot about just friggin' serving people and making that the primary. I might not have focused on it, but it wasn't the priority that it used to be. Mm-hmm. And we need to get back to serving people at the highest level, loving serving people at the highest level, getting those great feelings of reward from doing that. Because I think if you go back, I say, talk to me about when you were the most successful in your life, right? In your past, like when you were the most successful and you feel like you're making the most money, or because, people get in slumps or whatever it is, right? And they're like, my best year was so-and-so. Like, when you were having your best year, tell me about that. How did you feel? What were you doing? What was different about what you were doing? Where did you, and you can inevitably go back and go, I started focusing on this, and I didn't focus on that thing that got me to the dance. Mm-hmm. And I wanted to do more and better. And I got away from the blocking and tackling, and I was trying to make an ESPN highlight reel, and I just should have been blocking and tackling and forgetting about that.
Yeah.
And it's, I think a lot of people right now, these changes that come our way, I just think they're an opportunity for us to kind of float for a second, think about what's important to us, what's always been core to who we are, our success, what we believe will be core to who we are and our success in the next 5 to 10 years. Stick to that game plan and figure out, how do we amplify everything that we do? Where can we turn the dial up from a 7 to an 8 to a 9 and blow the speakers? Where can we just where can we just get the volume up and turn the intensity up and tweak it up a little bit? Because I guarantee you there are some things we can say no to that we can spend more time on the core values of our business and make a huge difference on it.
Mm-hmm.
And I think these times are gifts. I mean, it's people running real estate markets. And I was helping people running some market centers in South Florida, and it's like, what are you people doing? Your transactions are 30% of what they were a year ago right now. I was like, everybody, you guys have time to do like a zillion more. Who's complaining about the workload?
Uh-huh.
No. If you are, you're fired, right? The workload's down. So take that extra space in your schedule and what can you crush? Whose life can you impact around this market center? Who can you make feel like $1 million? Who can you pick up the phone and call and tell them that they're awesome? Be nice and look for opportunities to be nice and make an impact on people. And there's just so many things that I think this little period of time we're in, because I think come next year, I think our window is closing. I think once we know which lunatic is going to be the president, I think once we get a couple of rate reductions, I think once we, a couple of these uncertain things out there, when they become certain, regardless of what the answer is, it's the certainty that the world likes. I think somewhere in 2025 is a tipping point for our business.
Yep.
So I think you don't have a lot of time if you're a planner to really go back to working on your business and not just in it. And really figure out what you want it to look like in the next 5 to 10 years, because it starts today.
Right.
And if you've got a clear vision about that, you're not going to be fazed by whatever's going on right now.
Mm-hmm. Well said. Well said. Well, before we wrap up, I want to share a little bit of gratitude with you, not only for our time together today, which has been great, and your kind words about me a few minutes ago, but I was reflecting on a conversation that we had over a decade ago that you may or may not remember. And to use your word, I was at a fork in the road, and I called you up and asked you for some advice. And I remember where I was sitting, where you said, and you said it a couple of times on today's show, that I should go where I could impact the most people, and that everything else would take care of itself. And I thought about that a lot at different forks. I thought about that quite a bit when we decided to do this episode and continue to do it, and the different ways that has morphed over the years, more from like one-to-one interaction in the business now to something that has taken on much more scale, but the guiding light still being, one of the guiding lights still being where we could impact the most people. So I appreciate that.
You're doing
10 years later, it's still with me.
Well, you're doing it, and I can see you doing it. And every time I'm at one of your events and see your people, and I think everybody's pretty excited about the forks you've taken in the road, because you've made a big impact on a lot of awesome people.
Yeah. Well, thank you for that. Speaking of events, you'll be joining us as one of our keynotes at our event in Raleigh in November. We're excited about that. People will get an opportunity to interact with you and your wisdom again. What are some other ways that people could find or follow Shaun Rawls?
I'm always on Facebook. If I have a thought process or something I think is worth sharing, you can look me up on Facebook or Instagram. I'm easy to find there. SHAUN Rawls. That's an easy one. That's pretty much where you can find me. Otherwise, you can pick up the phone and call me, and you've got my number. So if anybody wants to talk to me, they can call Bill and get my number.
Yeah. That sounds great. Well, we'll link to all your social media stuff and also to your book, Effortless, and any of the other stuff that you mentioned in our show notes for today. Shaun, is there anything else you wanted to share with the folks before we wrap up?
No, just thank you for the time. This was super. I was looking forward to this, and this has been a lot of fun and highlight of my week for sure. And anytime I get to spend this much time with you in a quality, just shooting the shit format, I love it.
Yeah.
I love it. I love it. So I get more out of it than you get just listening to your thoughts, because I'm in awe of what you're doing, and I love how you're building your life, and I love how you're building your company, and it's fun to participate from time to time. So thank you.
Yeah. Well, thank you for saying that. That means a lot. All right, my friend. Great seeing you as always, and looking forward to seeing you in person at our event in November.
I'll look forward to it. Thanks a million.
Thanks, Shaun.
Take care, everybody.
Well, that's a wrap for today. I trust you came away with ideas to ponder and actions to take. I know I did. Before you go, please be sure to subscribe to the Middleton Elite Entrepreneur on your favorite platforms. And if you like what we're doing, please leave us a review. It really helps us spread the word to more people just like you. Finally, you can learn more about the work we do in coaching and consulting entrepreneurs by visiting us at middletonelitecoaching.com, where you'll find thoughtful commentary I write for our blog, info on upcoming live events, and tons of free resources to help you grow your business. Again, that's middletonelitecoaching.com. Until next time, be elite.